Stephen Lipnicki is our Assistant Dean of Students, and he is going to wrap things up today and talk about some very important resources that are available to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, thanks everyone. Thank you for staying with us. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it this far. Okay. How many of you are, as a graduate student, will be the first time you're attending Grand Valley? Please show me your hands. Okay, super. So the title of my presentation is How Not to Have a Crappy First Week. And what I've tried to do is, there are a number of things that I hear about from students, and it starts usually during the first week when things happen that you didn't expect to happen, like you couldn't find parking, you couldn't find where to get food, you didn't allow enough time for the bus in terms of getting to your classes. So we'll talk about some of those things. But one of the most important things is the reason that my presentation actually started is we had a graduate student working in, at the time, the Graduate Studies Office, and that student had some complaints. And she wrote a letter to the then dean and said, here are some of the things I experienced, and why did this happen, and why didn't you tell us how to avoid it? So we then turned that around. Our dean at the time, Dean Kimboko, said, well, I have a great idea. Why don't you put together a guidebook for your fellow students to help them so they don't have the same kinds of experiences, the negative things that you've had happen, and we can make sure we address them for you. So she did that. And so over time, we've actually taken this piece and we've enhanced it. So every year, we issue a new version of the Graduate Student Guidebook. We used to print them out, but now we just make it available online. It's comprehensive. There's a lot there. Probably almost every topic I'll touch today, you can find information in the guidebook about. You'll also find little tips in the guidebook that hopefully I'll remember to tell you. But if I miss any, they're there. So I just want you to know if something happens and you've missed something, you can always call me and say, Steve, you were talking about parking, but I missed something. Trust me, this is not just about parking. But the guidebook is the resource that will get you to what you need. So a couple of basic things. People to know, our president, President Haas, has been here 10 years, just celebrated his 10th year completion. Our provost has been here now coming up on 15 years. She's recently announced that she will be retiring at the end of next year. I don't know if that's retiring or going on to the next thing, but she's going to be our provost for one more year. She's been awesome for the university, as has President Haas, and I just wanted you to be aware of them because you will see them walking around. President Haas will show up at events, and there's nothing he likes better than to engage and talk to students, so feel free if you see him. Other people to know would be your advisor, you heard about that. Your graduate program director, that's the person in your graduate program who's really putting together the curriculum, who's getting the updates from the graduate school, and who's staying informed on all the things that are new. So if you have an issue and you want to find out what's going on, talk to your graduate program director as well as your advisor. And then, of course, each of you has a college dean. Your program is embedded within one of the 8 colleges at Grand Valley State University. So you heard about a number of opportunities. I'm going to tell you about one more. This is an opportunity to be involved with not student governance, but this is with university governance. So our University Academic Senate has a graduate council which works to make recommendations that go to the full Senate and they make the final approvals. We have 2 seats for graduate students. Those are voting seats. So if you choose to do that option, you're going to be committing a lot of Friday mornings to us, probably 3 out of 4 per month. But I will tell you that you will have the opportunity to get your voice heard and to represent other students in terms of the policies and the curriculum that move forward at Grand Valley State. Next thing I want to tell you about, in case anybody in here has yet to actually select a program, be admitted to a program, maybe you're taking some courses. If you need any assistance with that, the Graduate Admissions Office will have a table outside at 4 o'clock. They are the experts in terms of telling you about all the programs and the specifics about how to apply for those programs. So if you do have any of those questions, make sure you talk to Tracy when we're done here. The Student Assistance Center is, in essence, the registrar's office. It's a combination of a registrar and a bursar. Put those into words, it's records and payments. So anything to do with your academic records, transcripts, adding, dropping courses, which you can also do online, changing of a major, or in this case, it would be changing of a program, which has some additional, at the graduate level, if you're changing your program, you actually have to go through an admission process. So it's not as simple as the undergrad world where you just choose to change something. But also payments, getting your student ID, all of those things are available through the Student Assistance Centers. And they have windows both here in DeVos Building C, which is where Starbucks is. They also have an office in the Student Services Building on the Allendale campus. Financial aid, I'm not going to go through everything other than to tell you probably the obvious. As graduate students, the only federal money you have available to you is in the form of unsubsidized loans. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't complete a FAFSA and see what's available to you. The other thing the FAFSA might do for you at times is if you find a scholarship that you want to apply for, many times it's required that you have a FAFSA on file as well. So if you're looking at scholarships, especially the external scholarships, not the ones offered by the university, keep that in mind, okay? Another thing I like to let people know is that we do have an emergency loan available through our financial aid office. So if you're starting the beginning of a semester and maybe you're waiting for a reimbursement from your company, or maybe your company isn't going to reimburse you till after the fact or even after the semester, you can get a $500 loan that you could use for books or for other supplies. But as importantly, if your car breaks down in the middle of the semester and you don't have the money to get that repaired and suddenly you've got to buy some tires, you can get an emergency loan of $500 to go towards that as well. It's a short-term loan, which means it will need to be paid back by the end of the semester, but it's really intended to deal with an emergent situation and to get our students over the hump. The $500, I will just say, is their established maximum, but that doesn't mean you can't make a request for more if you have some unusual circumstance that would warrant it. We have reasonable people all around this university who take things into account, and if they can do things, they will. Okay? As mentioned, the University Counseling Center, and it's one of those things that you may not be thinking it's something you would have interest or need for, but lo and behold, about 5 weeks into the semester, the workload builds up, you've got papers due from all your different professors, you've got something going on with your family, you've got something going on at work. I just want you to know that there are people that can give you strategies. They don't necessarily have the answers, but they can give you strategies to cope with different situations, and they also have multiple resources. So just knowing that they exist, we have counselors both on this campus as well as the Allendale campus on a regular basis. So wherever you need, the easiest thing to do is you would go to their website or call them, schedule an appointment, and just let them know what campus you prefer to meet with them at, and they will schedule that accordingly. Grand Valley has been involved with over the last few years, as every university has, we have an obligation to share information about Title IX and about sexual assault. And you've probably heard details and statistics about the rate of sexual assaults on campus. Maybe you've seen films about it. There are films out now that are talking about it. And when I talk about sexual assault, I'm really talking to this whole audience. Sexual assault is not just a male-on-female situation, and so you need to be aware of that. So what we have is we have a number of resources within the Title IX office, and the one I want to mention, who I think is most important, is we have a survivor's advocate. And a survivor's advocate is one of the few people on our campus that you can talk to and get advice and not necessarily have to do anything beyond that. All her role is to do is to tell you where the resources are, tell you what your options are, so if you want to pursue something or not, you have the information that you need to make that decision. And what we're really about is making sure that Grand Valley is as safe as it can be. So if you do decide at some point, if something were to happen and you wanted to call the police, by all means do that. But if something were to happen and you really didn't know, and it didn't have to happen on campus, But if you're looking for some advice and you just want to talk to somebody and get the information and the resources, Ashley Schulte is actually the person who does this for the Title IX office, and she's just awesome. Okay? We have a whole range of services that we make available for our military veterans on campus. What I really want to do today is just make you aware that they exist. I'm actually one of the people involved with our Veterans Network and putting the resources together. We also have an SVA officer in the audience with us today. We also have a peer advising program for veterans educators, for veterans education. So there's a number of things, and here's my approach to what we do for military folks. What we're trying to do is sort of make things as easy for acclimating to the university and then acclimating out of the university into post-military employment as we can. So all the services that we have are based on that approach, and our website is listed there as well. All those little symbols you see is probably the one I want to mention is for the second year. Last week we received notification that the state of Michigan, Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency gave us what is considered their gold status. It's the highest status they award. It doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean we're great. It means we're doing a lot of good things, but there's so much more that we're going to try and do. Student parking, I have some important things to tell you, and none of it's good. So we'll just cover it. Because you guys know about parking and food, right? These are dissatisfiers. These are not what people get excited about at universities. So first thing you should know is to get a parking permit, it's an online process. You go to that link, or you can go to Grand Valley PD to their parking link, and you can get your parking permit. The rates are set for a part-time or full-time student that doesn't really consider graduate students. So for many of you, 7 credits, 9 credits is a full-time graduate load. So the 7 credits, but a lot of you are only going to be taking one course at a time. So you might not even be taking the 6 credits, but the way it's divided, it would still be at the $110 level. Last year we had the opportunity, and for those of you who are returning, you may know this. If you were here previously, you could actually get a number of guest passes through the course of the semester. And the university has decided, the parking facilities folks decided that was really unfair because in essence, people that were buying permits were also paying for the people who were getting the free guest visits. So they changed that this year, and it will now be a $6 charge if you need one of those guest passes. 2 things to know about that are important. The first one is it's going to be charged to your student account. They're not going to be set up to take cash or anything else. The second thing to be aware of is that you're going to need to be there in person and show an ID to pick up the actual permit. So it'll be available from Eberhardt Center, from our Pew Security Office, or in Allendale from the Grand Valley Police Department's Parking Services Office. Okay? Couple of changes to the bus services. And again, for those of you who are new, it doesn't really matter. And for those of you who don't use the bus, it may not matter. But I find that even though I don't use the bus regularly, there are times when I find it really convenient to jump on the bus to Allendale rather than driving my car. And especially if you don't have a parking permit. So the first thing that happened is our bus was running last year down Fulton Street, and it was making the stop at the downtown campus by Fulton. It was actually on Fulton underneath the 131 Expressway. That stop is being moved, and it will now stop under Front Street. And I don't know if everybody knows what that means. Front Street is by the Eberhardt Center and the Kennedy Engineering Building. So that's the street it will cut across. I'm going to show you a map in just a second, so that'll help identify where we're talking about. The other stop it's going to make is at the Seward Ramp. So for anybody that's thinking of parking here to grab the bus to Allendale, that would be the best thing to do, would be to park in the Seward Ramp, and then you can either grab a bus to Allendale from there, or you can grab a bus and get over to the Health Sciences Building, because the Health Sciences Building also doesn't have abundant parking for students. So just something for you to consider in terms of where you might want to park and the busing option that exists for you. The other thing to know is the connector, which is the line that runs between this campus and Allendale. will be making a stop behind the Standale Fire Department. So behind the Standale Fire Department, it will loop around off of Lake Michigan. It will make a stop there and do pickup, and there's free parking there. So if you want to approach this from a park and ride perspective without having to buy any parking permit, that would be an option. The other would be to park behind the Meijer in Standale, and you can also pick up a bus across the street from the Meijer on Lake Michigan. So what I was talking about is the two stops. So last year, this is Fulton. The bus will travel down Fulton and then to Lake Michigan. The way the bus will come to the city, to Grand Rapids, it will come in and then it will turn up on Seward, and then the stop will be here. And this is where you can, if you're coming from the ramp, this is where you get on or off. And then also, there will be a second stop that will be here underneath the expressway. So we're right now, we're in this building. This is DeVos E, the Loosemore Auditorium, and that's how close the stop is to us now. It had been over here, but now it will be here on Front Street. Just some careful do's, don'ts, things to consider. We're not in a high crime rate, but we do, in a high crime district, but we do have crime. The kind of crimes that we see the most of are bicycle thefts and what we call smash and grabs, where somebody breaks out a window because they see something of value in your vehicle. So don't leave pocketbooks, backpacks, computers sitting where people can see them, because typically they're not, if they don't see anything, they're typically not going to bother to break a window to try and get in to look for something. It's usually because they've seen something. That's when they'll go in. The other thing is bike locks. If you're using a bike and have a lock, please invest in a U-lock rather than a cable lock. We see this almost all the time. Almost every bike that is stolen from here is stolen because somebody snapped a cable or a chain. They really don't have time to get through cable locks. They could if they had enough time, but they really don't have to because there are enough bikes that aren't using cable locks that they can grab. You can also go to public safety and you can register your bicycle. So if it's taken, the police will have a record of it, and if it's found, we can get it back to you. And believe it or not, that happens. We do find them. In any kind of emergency, whether you're on this campus, you're at Cook DeVos Center, Seidman, Allendale, it doesn't matter. Dial 911 if there's any type of emergency that you see or you're aware of and you want to get immediate help. Don't worry about the local internal numbers that Grand Valley's established. We already heard about the emergency notification. One thing Vince didn't say that I would add is all school closing announcements will be made through that emergency notification system as well. So it's not just emergencies and weather and other things you might want to know about, but that's the go-to place for school closings. Textbooks, the only thing you need to know is you've got a week after you buy them to get them back to the bookstore in the condition they were in when you bought them, which means if it had any additional features, a CD or any kind of manual, all the pieces need to go back together to get your full refund, okay? The biggest thing to know for a number of you, if you don't live on campus, it doesn't make sense to buy a full meal plan. So what the university offers are dining dollar plans where you can buy, you can start with, I believe it's $200 and then renew. And those dining dollars are good at all of our venues. I have the dining dollars, it's just a convenience thing. I have to pay tax, but I believe for students you don't pay sales tax when using your dining dollars. Again, you might want to check. I see it says purchase or reload at $25, and that came directly from the dining folks. So I don't know if the minimum is the 25 or the 200. So, and they'll be outside if you want to. If anybody's thinking about that, they can answer that question for you. Last thing on that is used dollars roll over from fall to winter, but at the end of winter, you'll lose anything that's still on your card. So what tends to happen at the end of winter, the C-stores get cleaned out because everybody's trying to use up their dining dollars. So just be aware of that. A couple of recreation options that we have, and we know that a lot of students take advantage of all the recreation facilities. First, Grand Valley just made a substantial addition. In fact, we're not even completed yet, but we've made a first partial addition to our fitness center in Allendale, and we're in the process of adding the second, which will include more courts for different activities. At Access to that is free. All you need is your student ID. People ask, do I need a student ID? You typically will need it for that, for dining, for the library, and for the bus. So although we don't require it, some buildings will actually require that you have a student ID because of their own security, and that was the case in the Health Sciences building. I don't know if that's changed at all. The other option is an option that we've arranged with the Grand Rapids YMCA, which is just across the street from us here, and for $160 for an individual or $360 for a family, you can have a membership with the YMCA, have access to all of their facilities. You can park in their club when you're in their club, but once you're done, you need to remove your vehicle from there or they'll ticket you there. We have about 350 people in last winter who took advantage of the YMCA program because their courses were downtown and it just didn't make sense for them to get out to Allendale. So at $40 a month, the best rate they offer if you walked in the door would be $52 a month. So $40 a month was a pretty good negotiation. We wish we could offer it for less, but that's where we're at. And then we just have a lot is going on in Grand Rapids downtown. I won't spend time on it. You can Google it and you'll find all kinds of information. If anybody's new to the town, it's not just Grand Rapids, it's West Michigan, it's Holland, it's Saugatuck, it's Grand Haven. So there's tons to do in the area. And you will be getting a survey about your entire experience today so we can make sure we keep improving what's happening here today.